You know, it's probably around this area that I think I always end up sitting and just thinking when it comes to being on my forever world. Anyway. Hello. Hi. My name is Ket, and,
Hey,
welcome to my forever world. This is not a tour video, actually. That will probably come eventually, but I feel like I just find myself up here at this part of my world a lot. It was one of the earliest builds that I ever did in this world. And it's a nice little viewpoint over everything that's developed. You know, there's my farms, which were... These are the farms that I made when I first started playing on this world, and they're still being used now. Um, the same paths that I made, the expansion of the grass into the desert. You know, things keep changing in this world, in the same way that I keep changing as this world keeps going on. Um, I have VODs from when I streamed the very beginnings of this world. Originally, this world was intended to be something that I streamed constantly, mostly as like I guess a challenge to myself. It didn't last very long, and it turned into more of an obligation that kind of just defeated the whole purpose, to be honest. Which is why I don't do it anymore, but I've been recently watching a lot of videos where there's been a lot of just discussion, and I figure it might be fun to see if, you know, maybe we can just discuss a little bit. Unfortunately, I should have prepared for this. I need to find, a list of all of the Minecraft paintings real quick, because what I'm working on is actually a little art gallery. And now I need to do the 3x3s. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 3x3 paintings in this game. Did you know that there are 9 3x3 paintings in this game? Probably. Um, but yeah, I also apologize if there's any more like background noise. My window is open because it is hot as hell in my house, and turning on the AC doesn't really work when it's the end of November. But, um, I don't know, I just wanted to, you know what, I think I want to, lower this down a level, which means I'm gonna need to grab some more, uh, spruce logs, but that's besides the point. Do you ever, like, wonder, like, just how fast life seems to move? And, like, yeah, obviously you do. Like, I feel like that's... If there's anything that most people are really very introspective about, it is about how fast life moves. You know, we go from, you know, playing Minecraft when we get home from school, and just kind of, you know, wishing that we could get older while also never really expecting to. At least that was my experience. And I think that part, the never really expecting to, is what kind of got to me in terms of growing up, you know? I spent several years really not making any concrete plans on how I wanted my life to go. I had aspirations, I had dreams, I had things I wanted to do, but they always felt like something that I would do in the future. They never really felt like things that I would ever get to do, really. I think what I'm gonna do, by the way, is I think I'm gonna do 4. So I'm gonna do, like, 4 on each wall, which will total to 8. And I think at the end, I'll do the last one, and then I'll have a staircase that goes down. I think that'll be a good way to do it, because I kind of wanted this to kind of be a little bit in order. So, you know, it starts with the 1x1s, which are actually up here, up in these little towers here. Got all of the 1x1 paintings, which, you know, let me know if you have a favorite Minecraft painting, because this one is my favorite, and I couldn't really tell you why. I'd love to be very, like, introspective and be like, yeah, it's a commentary on life, and, you know, in part, I guess it could be, but also I just think it's really cute because the bunny is really cute. Um, I have a texture pack that makes the paintings a bit more high definition, so that's why they don't look like pixelated blobs, at least the Zetterstrand paintings. The newer ones are all pixely because they were made as pixel art, but the Zetterstrand ones at the very least are as high definition as I could get them. Um, Man, I love these paintings, if I'm being honest. Oh, man. But I'm getting very sidetracked, and I think in part that's a bit of a defense mechanism. I have a lot of things to say basically at any given time, and it's really difficult to, I guess, like, pace myself. Do I want to? Oh, I mean, both of these have done it like this, so I think, yeah, just putting them, like, right here, which would put the first glowstone at about here. Yeah, okay. But yeah, basically, like, the older I get, the more disappointed I am with how I'm not really making much progress, and how, you know, I'm really not all that much different than I was as a teenager. You know, as we get older, we aspire to be different. We think of our teenage years as like, oh my god, I was young, I was foolish, I was so stupid, I never I didn't know how to do anything. I couldn't, like, buy alcohol. I couldn't, like, you know, do anything. For me, I still just feel like a giant teenager, and I don't know if that'll necessarily ever go away. Maybe it will, as I get older, but, like, I'm 23. How much older do I have to get to not feel like a teenager anymore? You know, I thought that I would get over this feeling when I turned 20, and then I turned 20 and nothing changed. Then I was like, okay, well, I'll wait until I can buy alcohol, then I'll feel like an adult. And then every time I go to a liquor store, I feel like I'm, like, playing a prank, or like I'm doing something that I shouldn't, even when I have my legal government ID that says, yes, you can drink. Every time I've ever gone to a bar has just, it has terrified me, because I'm like, oh my god, I am not supposed to be here, even though I very clearly am. And I don't know, maybe this is like a very common thing. I need to go get, ooh, this is also a Zetterstrand one, so I'm curious as to why this one's pixelated and the other ones are not. But anyway, that's not the point of this conversation. I don't have a script, by the way. This is just going to be a bit of rambling, and it probably won't even be for very long, all things considered. The original plan was just to kind of, like, do this all in one take and not even bother with trying to edit it and just speak for 30 minutes until I got tired of speaking, but honestly, I might just edit things down just so that I don't feel so pressured to keep talking, because talking a lot is not as easy as you might think. It is very difficult to, you know, continue thinking and maintaining a thought process while also trying to speak. It's why I don't think streaming really was for me. It took a lot of energy out of me, and granted, I didn't really have many viewers, so it's not really like I was having to deal with constantly interacting with people, because, I mean, I wasn't. But the people that I did interact with, I wanted to talk, and I wanted to be, you know, someone who had something to say, and I couldn't always be that for people. I couldn't always be that for myself, rather. No one else ever imposed this expectation on me. I was the one who imposed that expectation on me, which maybe that in and of itself is a commentary on something that we tend to put so many... That's not the same one, right? No. We tend to put so many expectations on ourselves that other people don't. Some people do just like to have... And I'm not talking about, like, high, like, top-of-the-charts streamers. I'm talking just normal people who just stream. Oh, I placed them in the wrong spot. That's why the glowstone. I was like, oh, I placed the glowstone wrong. Nope, I placed the paintings wrong. So this one was Bouquet, and this one was Cavebird, I think? I have to go re-grindstone them, or re-stonecutter them anyway. If you're curious, that's a data pack that I have where I can just choose what painting. It's very, very convenient for making this because, yeah, as you can imagine, it's not as easy to... Yeah, that definitely works a little bit better because it's all up to here, but... Yeah, so I really badly lost my train of thought there, so apologies for the cut, but the main topic that I was really wanting to talk about is just this kind of, like, how life just changes and how unequipped we all are. And I'm sure that, like, it's all been said before, it's all been done before, you've heard it 1,000 times, and I'm sure you will hear it 1,000 more. But man, being an adult sucks, and it kind of... You know, I didn't hear too much of this when I was younger. I mean, I did always hear, like, you know, oh, don't say that you want to be older, because then you're gonna get older and you're gonna wish you were younger, and of course I always thought that that was bull, and that who would ever want to be younger? And then, you know, obviously that became the case where I did want to be younger. But I never really heard a lot of the adults in my life talk about how bad it was to be an adult. You know, most of what I heard was just, oh, you're never gonna have your childlike innocence back. You're never gonna have the time, you know, in adulthood you always run out of time. That was always something that I heard. But I never really heard people talk about how difficult it is to be an adult who still feels like a teenager. To go through life, you know, I'm gonna be working with teenagers. I am working with teenagers to an extent. And I feel so strange because they're so distant from me that I can barely understand how to best help them. But they're so close to me in age that I understand them more than a lot of the other people who work with them. They don't necessarily see me as an authority figure, but they also don't see me as one of them either. And, you know, I'm not trying to be seen as one of them. I don't want to be seen as one of them. I am not a teenager. This feels like an area that might benefit from some extra lighting behind the... Oh my god. Please tell me that didn't break. Okay, awesome. And how does that look? That looks phenomenal. Yeah. You know, I don't want teenagers to, like, look at me and be like, oh yeah, you're one of me. I am not. Very much not. My teenage years are over. And a part of me is very glad that they are, because they were rough and they sucked and they were flooded with just terrible, terrible experiences, horrible traumas that I would not wish on my worst enemy. But at the same time, I also didn't have to pay taxes, so, you know, who's really having the better life, you know? And like, that's another thing. Like, I always heard people talk about taxes as if they were, like, this really bad thing. When in reality, like, every time I say, oh my god, I wish I didn't have to pay taxes, I don't care. It takes an extra couple hours a year. It's really not that difficult. And granted, things are different for if you have, you know, other, like financial issues, if you never take a medical leave, because when you take a medical leave, your taxes get 10 times more complicated for some reason, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You would think that taking a medical leave would not be as difficult because, you know, you've taken a medical leave for a reason, but it's not always the case. Catan. I'm gonna need to look up how to do that, but not gonna do that on video because it just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. But have you guys seen the new Dennis painting? Because it is very cute, and my god. You know what? That's kind of relevant, the Minecraft movie, because when I went to go see the Minecraft movie, it wasn't really me going to see it. I'm 23 now, but I was 22 when I went to go see it, because I went to go see it a few months ago. It wasn't 22-year-old me who was watching it. It wasn't 22-year-old me that was so excited, despite knowing that it probably was not going to be that good. It wasn't the 22-year-old me who practically internally screamed with joy when I finally bought the tickets and was like, yeah, I'm here to see the Minecraft movie. I had been wanting to see that movie for almost a decade at this point. Basically for as long as I've been playing Minecraft, and hell, my Minecraft account turns 11 years old in a couple of weeks, which is insane. It's insane that a game like this has lasted, like, impact-wise, as long as it has for me, because, you know, when I got the game, my mother was convinced it was going to be a phase, but she bought it anyway because, you know, it was $26.99 back then. This was 2014. And her kid just wanted this fun little game, and all she really cared about was that it didn't have guns in it, because my mother was very anti-violent video game, and she was just excited that I wanted to play something that didn't have guns. And then 11 years later, here I am, still playing the same game in, honestly, very similar ways. You know, not a lot has changed with how I play the game. Not a lot has changed with how much of a, I guess, a positive impact this game has had on me. I still, so now I'm actually recording it, but when I was a kid, I used to just talk to myself whenever I would play the games, not in like a crazy way. You know, you hear, oh, I talked to myself. It wasn't that. Like, I didn't actually think that I wasn't actually trying to talk to anyone, I guess is my point. But I was one of those kids who would sit on my Xbox late at night playing Minecraft and just talking and being like, hi guys! What's up guys? I'm here with another awesome video! I didn't have a capture card. I didn't have any video recording software, and I probably sounded so much squeakier and so much more immature because I was like literally 12. But strangely it helped, you know? I don't think I realized it at the time, but it was kind of a way of therapy for me. In some very, very strange way, but, you know, I remember talking about getting bullied at school. I remember talking about how, I was stressed out about entering high school. I remember talking about how my classmates were needlessly cruel. I remember talking about being queer in a school where that was not normalized, where in a time where the only queer representation I had was through adult films that I should not have been watching at that age. I didn't really have any connection to queer people, but I knew that I was, and that was shameful. I remember confiding in someone, and they were like, oh, well, you know, God will help you work it out, you know, because that's a sin. And, you know, what are you to do with that? How are you supposed to deal with, you know, being 12, 13 years old and crying yourself to sleep to a God that you're not even sure that you believe in, just begging for forgiveness because you're not straight? It's such an experience that is so... I don't have too much religious trauma. I don't have good experiences with religious people. But all things considered, I don't really have religious trauma, per se. This one's Fern, and this one's End Boss. Yeah, I don't really have, like, any religious trauma. It was just that religion was not good to me. You know, the religious people I did interact with they were very kind people, and I remember they were always like, if you ever need any help, please reach out and let us know, and, you know, we will always support you, no matter what, because no matter what your life turns out to be, it is valid, because that is how God wills it. But God forbid you're gay, because if you're gay, it's a sin. And it was just that abrupt shift where it went from we'll accept you for anything and we'll give you help no matter what to your very existence is a sin. Your desire to love the person that you want to love is a sin. And that's already bad enough when you're telling that to, you know, people who are much, much older. Imagine saying to a 12-year-old that because they have a crush on a person of the same gender, that they're a sinner, and that they're gonna go to hell for that. When all they have is just a crush. And it's... I don't think too much about it anymore because... I'm not religious. I don't claim to be religious, and my general stance on religion is if it is something that brings you comfort, then I am glad that it has done for you what it could not for me. But ultimately, you know, that's really the downside of it, is a lot of the religious people I run into, they don't have that mentality. Their mentality is either you believe what they believe, or you are damned to hell for all of eternity. And that then also brings me into the topic of one of my favorite movies of all time is Bridge to Terabithia, and I think one of the lines that really sticks out to me that I don't know if it will ever leave my mind is when Leslie and Jess are talking, and Jess just says, forgive me, it's been a while since I've watched the movie, so I don't remember the exact line, but not Jess, Leslie says something along the lines of, I don't think God would damn people to hell. That doesn't sound like him. And she didn't believe, you know, she wasn't a believer. At the very end of the movie, you know, Jess's dad says something along the lines of, like, I don't understand God, but I know that he's not gonna send that poor little girl to hell. It's such an interesting dynamic to... Is it just Owl? I'll look at what the actual names are later, because I'm getting distracted trying to keep the names of these things on here, but... I don't know, you'd think that that would be how most religious people would be, but it's really not. and try handling that when growing up. You know, that's hard enough. Finding a religion is hard enough. Growing up is hard enough. Doing it all at the same time, it's difficult. Anyway, I feel like I've rambled quite a bit, and I don't even really know if I'm gonna post this or not, but, I'm missing a wall here. Awesome. Yeah. I guess my main point is just that, you know, life moves so fast, and I don't really know what to do about that. And I don't really know if anyone knows what to do about that. And I find myself jealous of the people who do have religion. Because the people who do have religion, they have a meaning. They have something in their life that makes sense to them. They have something in their life that they just have something that brings them comfort. That I just can't say the same for me. But you know, maybe one day I will find that something. Maybe one day I'll start feeling like an actual adult. Maybe one day I will have an understanding of the world that is deeply personal, that allows me to best understand my role, not only in society, but in the world as a whole. Something that helps me understand why I exist and for what purpose I exist. Because my god, trying to find purpose in life is a seriously daunting task, and one that if you try to focus on for too long, you're just gonna end up driving yourself insane. But that being said, if anyone else has listened to this, I do want to thank you for, you know, just being here, just listening. It means a lot, surprisingly, just to know that some people listen, you know? But if I end up doing another one of these, I'm gonna probably, instead of doing it live like this, I'm just gonna record the background footage and then maybe write out like a little script. Not a script, but just something a bit more organized, because this was a very disorganized thing and I do severely apologize for that. But thanks for watching. And if there is a next one, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.